621, Big 550, KTRS. Brett Garrett's the man, former G-man. Now works for ABC News, crime and terrorism consultant. Good morning, Brett Garrett.
Good morning, McGraw.
Let's start with this story from yesterday, or at least it was released yesterday, that the U.S. is deploying warships into the Black Sea for the Olympics. What's going on there?
Well, that I think is twofold, McGraw. One is it creates an emergency exit quickly for athletes and other people if something bad would happen, like a terrorist attack. They could fly in, pick up Americans, take them out. I think they're also there from a technology standpoint, to assist the Russians in assessing what's going on both at sea and from the air, because this, to a certain extent, is a collaborative effort to understand and hopefully diffuse any potential terrorist attacks.
Don't you find it just interesting, and we should be sending a warship into the Black Sea, and Russia's like, yeah, sure, come on in, help us out. I mean,
well, I think that tells you volumes, McGraw, because the Russians, I think, are so concerned about a terrorist attack that they are allowing us. I can tell you, I have friends that have been in Russia for weeks, FBI agents that are Russian speakers, working with the Russians, analyzing intelligence, deciding what to do with it. The Russians will do all the probably on the ground stuff in Russia, but just reaching out and getting help. The Russians are sort of hot and cold on this issue, but I do think they've probably opened the door a little bit more because they feel vulnerable.
Now, how much of a threat is there? Because we're starting to hear about this Black Widow. Now this video showed up. How much of this is a whole lot of saber rattling, and how much of this is a serious threat?
I think I don't know so much about these particular Black Widows they've been talking about, but the security threat is very real, and I think it's going to be extremely difficult for them to stop everything. I'm not suggesting in Sochi or the events are occurring, but there are so many soft targets within miles of Sochi. Transportation hubs, that's what the extremists like. Could they send a suicide bomber into folks transiting by train from Moscow? Of course, and they could kill hundreds doing that and make probably as big a statement as maybe doing something in Sochi.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this may be a silly question, Brad, but do you think they would ever, say, you know what, it's just becoming too much. We may just hold off on these Olympics and just cancel them. Do you think that will ever be a possibility?
I suppose if you had some incredible threat that they are just convinced they can't stop, I suppose that could happen, Kelly. I don't know that I see that. I mean, I think the Russians, with others' assistance, us included, have some comfort level that the events and the games themselves will be okay. So I don't think that's likely. It'll get canceled.
Everyone talks about, why can't you keep these Olympics safe? Remember, when the Olympics were in Atlanta, we had Eric Rudolph, have that bomb go off in the middle of the Olympics here in America.
Exactly. He dropped a backpack and left and killed a couple people, injured a fair number of folks.
Right.
So could something like that happen? Sure. Again, do I think it would happen within the confines of the Olympics? No. City of Sochi. Now the Russians have 60,000 security personnel. They're monitoring all the internet traffic, all the telephone, all the cell phones. I mean, literally anything you say or do within Sochi, they're listening to it, or reading it.
And that Atlanta bombing was a knapsack with a bunch of nails in it. So I mean, you have to stop everything, which is impossible.
Well, that's right. So McGraw, my belief is, will they try something not spectacular but horrific? And I think the answer is yes. Will they, try to walk into a crowded bar, as I mentioned earlier, transportation hub, something like that? And they may be several miles from Sochi, but the odds of that happening, I think, are extremely high.
Let's move to the Olympics. New York has said you can't tailgate, all sorts of things New York is doing. Are they going overboard a little bit?
I don't think so, but they have a unique thing, McGraw, because they've got two venues. You've got East Rutherford, New Jersey, where the stadium will occur, and then you have 14 blocks of Times Square, where it's virtually a Super Bowl party for 4 days, from Wednesday, through Saturday. And so NYPD, FBI, etc., are going to virtually have to cover Times Square like it's a 4-day New Year's Eve gathering. 400 plus thousand folks they think may come through there. So you have the entire apparatus at the stadium. There would be a 4-mile fence, 300-foot barrier from the stadium. You're going to have to go through tents. You'll go through security much like you go through at the airport. Metal detectors, pat-downs, only can take clear plastic bags, no large purses. It just goes on and on. So there's thousands of people, law enforcement personnel, to pull this off.
I'd much rather watch it on TV after all that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then quickly, why we still have you? What did I hear that they arrested somebody or captured somebody on the Mexican border with those target numbers?
Yes. And so here's what happens, McGraw. After they were stolen, which is a whole other story, obviously, they sell them. And if you have access to what they call black sites, you can buy the numbers. And you can either create new cards or go online and buy them. That is always the vulnerable point in these thefts, are the people that go out and actually try to use the cards, either online or in a store. And so Secret Service, other agencies were able to track, because of the numbers. Apparently they have the numbers that were stolen, or a large number of them, and they tracked it to these folks. So don't be surprised if you hear versions of this story as we go on.
And if you buy them online, there's no way to track who you're buying them from, even if you catch somebody buying them online.
Well, that's right. And so it's much safer. But think about it, McGraw. If you order 4 flat screen televisions, they've got to be shipped someplace. So there's going to be some vulnerability. It'll take some work, but you're going to eventually be able to figure out maybe who purchases. The problem with that, McGraw, it doesn't help you much, because all they did was buy the numbers. They have no idea how it worked. They just had the numbers. It's kind of like breaking in a store and stealing something.
That's Brad Garrett, ABC Crime and Terrorism Consultant. Brad, good to hear your voice. Be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, McGraw.